guys, what's going on, Period B? I am not in school today, or at least for your class. I have a doctor's appointment, apparently. Necessary doctor's appointment. So anyway, I will not be there for class today. So what you guys are going to do is watch an ed puzzle, and I'm going to assign homework as well. So we've been talking about the farmers, right? The plight of the farmers in their attempt to get some of their problems resolved, right? We've gone through really the list of things that are affecting the farmer and why it's making life so difficult for them. So they decide that they're going to unionize. They form the Grange, which is the first farmers union that we talked about from our vocab, right? And they're going to take a political approach to solutions for the farmer, right? If we look at the unions, we have the American Federation of Labor, which focus on collective bargaining. We have the Knights of Labor that focus more on direct action. The Grange is going to focus on getting people elected at the local and state levels in order to effect real change. And we see this a lot in the Midwestern states, particularly Wisconsin, where states start passing what are called Granger laws. And these are laws specifically targeting the railroad, and it's really it's attack on the farmer. And then what we're going to see is the populist movement, the farmers movement, start to move nationally. And that's thanks to three individuals. Two of whom are in your vocab. The first one is Mary Lease. Mary Lease was a woman from Kansas, real radical leader of the farmer who told farmers to raise less corn and more hell, right? The idea of focusing maybe on boycotting farming corn so that people would actually listen to the farmer. The second one is Senator Pitchfork Ben Tillman. He was the governor of South Carolina, went on to be U.S. Senator, who really fought against the railroads in the South. Usually in this chapter, we've just been talking about the Midwestern farmers, but that's not to say that Southern farmers were not exempt from this plight as well. And then the third one, who's in your vocab as well, is Sockless Jerry Simpson. We talked about him, right? He's the Speaker of the House, really puts the national agenda focused on the farmer. The most successful organization, however, for the farmer on a political level is the Populist Party. It was created in 1892 in Omaha, Nebraska. Populi in Latin means people, right? So this is literally the People's Party, or that's the way that they saw themselves. They were hoping to attract members of the Grange, members of the Farmers Alliance, which is something that we don't talk about, but it's another farmers union, all against what we call Eastern interests, right? Much like Andrew Jackson attacked the Northeast for its control of the National Bank in 1828. Farmers really blame the Northeast for their problems, right? We looked at that political cartoon of the cow, and we see that everything's going in from one side in the Midwest, and it's coming out the other and just making a profit for people on Wall Street. Their campaign slogan, "In God we trusted, in Kansas we busted," right? Farmers have been promised economic independence from the Homestead Act of 1862, and instead they got a whole lot of nothing. Just like every party, the Populists created a platform. Now, this platform is not created with the idea of really winning elections. A third party, like the Populist Party, is created for the purpose of getting their ideas absorbed into the mainstream of one of two political parties. Right? Of course, they want to win elections, but a third party, like today, the Green Party, the Communist Party, they know they're not going to win the House. They know they're not going to win the Senate. They're not going to win the presidency. But if enough of their ideas get into the mainstream, they could be absorbed by one of the two political parties, and then it becomes something that might actually affect change. You're going to read the Populist platform right now, and I want you to think about how many of these ideas, these planks of a platform, right, the list that is provided, are actually accepted and taken into account today. The platform specifically states, right, there's a quote in it, says, "America is becoming a nation of two classes, tramps and millionaires." In this respect, we're talking about the economic divide that has been created in the country and is growing ever larger as a result of the exploitation of the farmer and the worker. The Populist Party, its focus was on the federal government solving problems. Right, and they're going to run for the election in 1892. They actually run a guy named General James B. Weaver. He actually does pretty well. You can see from the map here that he actually captures a number of electoral votes. But really what happens is the goal of any political party, as I said, is to get their ideas adopted into the mainstream. And in 1896, we will see them adopted into the Democratic Party. Right? And this is their real chance to affect national change. The Democrats take in a lot of those planks, in particular the coinage of silver, and nominate a guy named William Jennings Bryan to run for the presidency. He was a very famous spokesman for the farmer. Grew up in small towns, very fire and brimstone biblical type attitudes in the way that he spoke. My dog's over here. That's what's going on. And in particular, their focus is on the coinage of silver. You can see in this political cartoon here what we're talking about. And his most famous speech is the Cross of Gold speech from your vocab, and you're going to read that right now. Republicans were very fearful that William Jennings Bryan would really destroy what had been built during the Gilded Age for Republican prosperity, right? The strong dollar that we've talked about, right? And really the boom that had been happening economically over the past 10 to 15 years. So their focus is hell-bent on making sure Bryan cannot win the election. The Republican Party is run by a guy named Marcus Alonzo Hanna. He's a boss, just like Boss Tweed we talked about. And he's going to go into a back room with a bunch of guys and smoking cigars and handpick his nominee for the president. That's William McKinley, who was the governor of Ohio. My favorite quote in all of American history comes from Marcus Alonzo Hanna. And this is really the embodiment of the Gilded Age Republican idea. He says the two most important things in politics are money and I forget the other, right? He's saying that all that matters is, can you buy votes? Can you buy elections? And McKinley's campaign is the embodiment of that. He's going to run on the strong dollar, economic prosperity, high tariffs for business. And in his campaign, he really does nothing. He runs what's called a front porch campaign. He literally just sits there on his front porch and let reporters come to him while the Republican bosses were spreading money all over the country. Bryan takes a very different approach. His best ability is his ability to speak. So he goes out, gives over 600 speeches across the country, right? But it won't be enough. Republicans, with their monetary influence, with their slogan, "In God we trust, with Bryan we bust," right? Really a play on the populist slogan, is able to defeat Bryan and the Democrats. You can see here that the Democrats do very well, right? They control the South, they control the Midwest, but it's not enough to overcome this huge majority here in the Northeast. So unfortunately, the Populists do lose. The Democrats lose in 1896 as representative of the farmers, but we could argue that long-term, they accomplished their goal. Their ideas get into the mainstream. They're actually going to be absorbed by Republicans in the progressive period. And today, we can see their change.